He said that there's need to have a cut down on Parliament, the bicameral House, and wants to make the Senate the upper house in an attempt to end the sibling rivalry, and wants to channel more money into the devolved units across the 47 counties. To that extent, then, does it not sound enticing to a detrimental
It is
public?
enticing, but as a constitutional lawyer, Aukot is talking about making the Senate the upper house, which I don't dispute. We need to have an upper house between the two. But then look at one thing. He's talking about the Senate vetoing bills from the National Assembly. But he is missing on a point that the president has the same powers.
All right.
In Article 115 of the Constitution, the president vetoes all bills from the National Assembly. And if he so feels that it is not worth, he returns it to the National Assembly.
Okay, for
He's giving the
reconsideration.
same powers to the Senate without talking about the powers of the president. He must address the Constitution in totality if he wants to address any issues on vetoing the Senate. But to the effect that he wants to give the Senate veto powers, we don't dispute. But assume electing 2 representatives
From each county.
from each county.
Okay.
Is Aukot even being logical?
Okay, that is the burden point, because many Kenyans have reservations about that, and it's subject to debate. He and his team managed to defend that because they have presented some economical facts and figures saying that they want to cut down on this in an attempt to rechannel money into the economy
And that is why I
address the
told
issue
you.
of corruption. Because there are many Kenyans who do not agree with him on that, because they say that there is an open up democratic space, there is need for more representation, not cutting down on the representation.
Just on answering on representation.
Okay,
alone.
I'll come to you, Victor.
Just
I'll come
one
to you,
second.
Victor.
Just one
because I'll come to you. It's a bit expansive because I'll seek your sentiments.
It's just
on
a
that.
word.
Okay.
A word.
Briefly.
As you discuss this, remember that we are only saving on around 14 billion when we reduce representation. We need to save on even the 600 billion that is lost through corruption. We need to save a lot on land that is being grabbed.
All right.
We need to talk about the contraband sugar that is coming to the country, unleaded goods that we have in the country. We need to talk about our health care in the country. So Aukot's bill in totality is only for rejection.
All right. Then he made the case of health, water. At some point in 2017, when he unveiled his shadow cabinet, he raised 14 key points, which he said he will address the issues at hand. Kevin. Yes. Kelvin Aukot, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do appreciate your time. Of course, maybe you have been held up in traffic, I presume.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Most probably.
Well, we were discussing, before we move to the political angle of the topics at hand and what the papers are detailing this Tuesday morning, the probing by the DCI over the 4 billion Kenya shillings scam at the Kenya Pipeline Company. Again, this surfaces at a time when the detectives or the investigative agencies are handling other cases that are multi-billion scandal and continue to give the taxpayers sleepless nights when it comes to the management of the economy and their money, because they give those in authority the mandate to look after their resources. Does it prove, or does it appear literally as the burden point of the cases that continue to pile up on the investigative agencies and coming in uncontrollably? And in essence, will this be the paving way, and can Haji-Kinoti relationship be the end point of corruption in this country?
I'll start by the last point. Thank you again for your time and for having me. I'll start by the point that let us be very clear that we cannot have an end point to corruption. I usually like to have a view of the glass is half empty in terms of corruption. Corruption is happening everywhere,
okay.
You know,
it's a
across
global
the world. So it's happening across the world. The levels of corruption and what corruption does to an economy and to service delivery to its citizens is what, you know, comes out as very shocking and appalling. We're talking about, you know, a 4 billion scam at the KPC this morning. I think we need to go back a few steps and just look at the DPP-Kinoti kind of relationship. It didn't start today. It's been there for, I think, about 2 years now. It didn't start the other day. And that's when we started seeing some of these cases coming out. This corruption has always, institutional corruption has always existed. It has always been there. But we live in an age where information is coming out more. And these two institutions have been strengthened a lot by the current president, you know, giving the DPP the powers. Remember when the DPP was making his speech at the Law Society meeting, and he said that we were testing the waters with you know, the first cases we saw of governors being taken to court. And he said very clearly that we were testing the waters, we are looking at the judiciary, and is it a judiciary that you can work with? And the first two cases, you know, of Governor of Migori and Governor of Busia being taken to court, he actually made a speech after that. And after that, we've seen an avalanche of these cases being taken to court. This just clearly shows you that these are cases that they've been working at. And they're just coming out at a time when, you know, the DPP's office feel that it's time to prosecute.
All right.
So I think it's just a matter of, we live in an age where now this information is coming out. If we were to go back and investigate cases, you know, from Kenya Re in the 90s to Mumias in the 90s.
With the Golden Bag.
To the Golden Bags. I mean, if it was maybe the current DPP working in conjunction with the DCI, the cases would have come out much earlier and been concluded much faster.
All right. You express a little bit of optimism because that is what many Kenyans are doing at the moment, knowing that Kinoti and company are on board. And given that you extraordinarily are sanguine about reaching the conclusion points of the cases that we are having in the courts of law, of course, we need to circumspect around the nitty-gritties because they are court matters, and we don't want to be, of course, we don't want to be in contempt of court. So, gentlemen.